I will call this meeting to order. Please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for being here. We have a special guest in our audience, Senator Larry Crowder. Stand up, Larry. Thank you for being here, sir. Certainly appreciate your presence. We have a citizen comment period. If you would like to say a few words, please come forward during that time. Roll call. We can go ahead and hold on 1 second. And we'll start voting. Start voting, please. Holly?
All councilors present and a quorum has been declared.
Thank you. Next up, we have agenda approval. Holly or Heather, are there any changes or additions, deletions to the agenda?
No, there's not.
If not, Mayor, I'll make the motion. We approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the agenda? Seeing none. Start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Next up, we have citizen comment. Alamosa City Council welcomes your comments. Citizens wishing to speak may obtain and complete a speaker card through the city clerk at the start of the meeting. I have 2 written cards here. One is Mr. L.V. Conley.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Councilman. I want to do a quick introduction tonight. My name is L.V. Ray Conley, and for those of you who haven't met me yet, I'm running for City Council in Ward 3. 3 things I'm very passionate about is continued growth for public safety in our community, strategic planning for job creation within our community, and increasing and improving our recreational planning for our community. As Ward 3 is a key area and home to our elementary school and new housing developments, in the coming months, I want to hear from the community and their dreams and visions for Ward 3. I will share my plans and goals centered around job creation, recreation, and public safety. As the next generation stepping up to the plate to help our community, I look forward to discussing how my experience will be beneficial to Ward 3 and the City of Alamosa. City Councilman, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Conley.
Thank you.
Welcome to the race. The next card I have is Christopher Hall. Mr. Hall, please step to the podium and identify yourself and your address for the record, please.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and all the elected officials. My name is Christopher Hall. I'm the CEO for Rocky Mountain SARE. We are here just to gather support from you all on the RFP that was put out with the City of Alamosa to offer youth programs and also economic development. We here at Rocky Mountain SARE has been around since 1980. We're a strong organization. We have started a youth and community program about 5 years ago. And we want to bring that, what we started in Denver, down all the way down here to Alamosa. We specialize in after-school programs, sports and fitness, enrichment for the kids, and we help individuals go on off to college. We have placed last year 17 individuals with Division I scholarships in football, also in track and field, and other various sports. So we want to bring that same model down here in Alamosa. What we also would like to do is bring in a youth tournament called Release the Beast. Release the Beast is a large football tournament in Denver, Colorado that has 100 football teams. We also bring in about 30,000 people to view and watch that tournament every year. We want to cut that in half and bring it in Alamosa. We want to bring in 50 teams, which bring about 15,000 individuals here to participate in that event. We also have an annual training competition conference for Rocky Mountain SER. We have 500 individuals. We want to bring all of that revenue here back into Alamosa. Even though we're housed in Denver, Colorado, we say, you know what? We don't want to spend all our money in Denver. We want to go to some of these other communities that we truly serve. So since we have about a minute and a half left, I would like to have Jermaine Stafford just to say a couple of words that's concerning our youth and community program.
Good day, thank you. As you see, every day we come out and we see youth running around every day. I met you, Mr. Coleman, out on the field when I did a free football camp here for kids. Every day you come across young men and women. It's not about how we teach them, it's what you're putting in front of them. Here at Rocky Mountain SER, we can promise you one thing. You will see these faces. You will see these people in the room. As you can see what they have on the shirt, to be. We're here to be more for the young men and women of the city of Alamosa. Not just in this area, but the whole SLV, the valley. As you can see, we have Kid Connection, a representative for Kid Connection where we collaborated with. We're not here to fight with other organizations. We want to collaborate and work together. You have almost 3,000 young people in your community. Let us help. If we take 400, that's 400 that we can serve and we can do more with. Every day we fight this battle, and you see the people that do it, flash in a pan, in and out the door. Rocky Mountain SER is a 35-year organization. We can come here. We have the location already. We're not taking funds and putting into facilities. We're going to bring jobs here for 7 to 10 Alamosa citizens and make this program work.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments, Council, of these gentlemen?
I have a comment. First of all, I would like to thank Councilman Griego for inviting me out there that day to see these gentlemen and also to see the youth practice out on the field that day. You all did a wonderful job. What I liked about it was that you incorporated some of our superstars here from the Alamosa High School, which are in the back row over there, to help with the youth. And that was very important. I like all the things that Rocky Mountain SER stands for and the things that Rocky Mountain SER is doing, not only in our community, but across the state. Thanks again for the great show of support from all employees and staff who work at Rocky Mountain SER. I just want you to know that the work that you do is important. And back to be, I like that. To be, I hope that at some point in time we'll get a chance to discuss more information, maybe in some form of a work session, and talk about how we all can be and make the students here and the youth and the athletes successful in their endeavors. Thank you.
Councilman Griego?
I just want to make a couple comments. One of the most important things of our future is our youth. And anytime you're dealing with our youth and helping our youth, we got big ears. And anything we can help, especially now with the program, with the drug situation stuff, you can't keep these youths involved and keep them going, keep their minds directed in something, they veer off that way. So any program that provides something like that, some leadership, some get involvement for youth, I think we as a city need to get behind and support it. And thank you very much.
Councilman Stefano.
I also would like to thank you. You guys do a great job. I've had the pleasure of hiring some people that have gone through your program, and they had nothing but positive stuff to say about you guys. Raj.
Thank you, and I applaud your efforts and I wish you the best. And I like the shirts. To be or not to be, I would rather be. And so it's a Shakespearean quote. You obviously know that, but thank you very much. Very nice. All right, and I think Mr. Crowther is back there as well. Thank you for being here, Senator Crowther.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to come in and speak to you briefly. It's always a pleasure to be here. I'm the Colorado State Senator for this region. What I do is I'm Senate District 35. I cover 16 counties in south central and southeastern Colorado, basically from Wolf Creek Pass to Kansas. I cover roughly 1/4 of the state, and I can tell you it's a sheer pleasure because this is the greatest district in the state, and the people in the district. I I'm basically here just to visit with you and see if you had any questions on what is going on. And I would tell you that I could inform you about everything that's going on in the state, but it would take a considerable amount of time for that. You know, I was very impressed with the Rocky Mountain SARE approach on this a while ago. You know, I am on the Tony Grampus board at Denver. We do work with the boys clubs and whatnot, and I'm very familiar with Rocky Mountain SARE. And, you know, I think it's a great organization, and I think it's a very much needed organization. You know, I serve on the Health and Human Services as well as local government. You know, Councilman Grego brought up drugs. This is something we're working on continuously. This marijuana has, you know, we are attempting to go back and see if we can't fix a lot of the mistakes in which we made. You know, we do realize we have a problem. It's divided into two groups, the medical marijuana as well as the recreational. And what we're seeing in a lot of unincorporated areas of the state is situations where it's especially in trailer parks and close housing, where the marijuana smoke will drift into the neighbors' their space. This is some of the issues we have to deal with, and it's going to be an ongoing situation as we deal with the marijuana reform. We have to realize that the people that do not smoke have an equal right as well as those that do smoke. And you know, it's something that's going to be continuing, and it's going to be continuing for some time. You know, last year was a very busy year. I was involved in about 42 different bills. So I tend to, I will not be outworked by anybody. So, you know, the needs and the wants of the district are, you know, rural Colorado is, in my opinion, is treated in a different respect than metro area. And so what we need to do is make sure we have a very loud voice for rural Colorado, and that's what it's about. But I didn't know if you had I know there's a time limit on this, and what I was asking, what I would be looking for is any comments that you might have on the way I've been doing this, any criticism, any wants or needs that you think that need to be addressed that have not been addressed, and kind of open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Senator. Councilor Grego.
Senator, I'd just like to thank you and State Representative Vigil for the town hall meetings that you have that are really informative, and I wish a lot of people would attend those, because, you know, those are where you talk about the bills and all the stuff and just get the right information, and I really totally appreciate those town hall meetings that you've been having.
Since you brought up Representative Vigil, we are going to have, I just found out today that we're going to have the dedication for the Home Lake expansion, the cemetery, that Representative Vigil and I both ran. And they just got that done in July. And what was so neat about this, well, if you're aware of it, at Home Lake Cemetery, we had basically run out of spots or plots. And our veterans actually were being turned away because there was no burial plots there. So what we did was we got this going. And when this first started, I seen the architect's rendition of that cemetery. But when it was complete, the actual cemetery looked far better than the rendition that he put on paper. So it's kind of exciting, you know. But that's going to be September 11th at 1 o'clock, and you're all invited to Home Lake Cemetery. And Representative Vigil will be there also.
Another thing too is the working relationship, because you're a Republican and he's a Democrat, and the working relationship that you guys have, which is great for the people. You see at the federal level where they're fighting each other, and nothing gets done. And that working relationship really tells us that your interest is for the people of the San Luis Valley.
I went into this with two basic philosophies. The first one, anytime a bill is introduced, it doesn't matter to me who introduces it. That bill belongs to the people at that point in time, once it's introduced. If that bill would benefit the district or the state, you know, I'm all for it. I'm not, you don't see my name out politically on a lot of issues, because, you know, a lot of it is, I'm just not that political. What my concern is my district and getting things done. And the other philosophy that I went into this with is I represent the way I would like to be represented. And that's the two simple issues that I continue with. Now, Ed and I, Representative Vigil and myself, work very well together because both of our interest is District 35. So it's not difficult and it's not rocket science. But I do believe that, it's been, I do not believe the state of Colorado should lower itself to the same level as the federal government when it comes to politics. The reality is, we're dealing with people and their needs, and people, in my opinion, should not be a political football. And that might sound oversimplified, but that's the way I tend to believe.
Councilor Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor. Senator Crowder, thank you for being here, and thank you for all of your work you do in Denver and representing the Valley and Senate 35. Personally, I would like to ask you if you could keep fighting for public education funding for our schools, especially here in Alamosa, and how bad we are underfunded. If you could keep fighting for us, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. The negative factor has been an issue. We had a downturn in government, and we haven't caught that all the way up, but we've done considerably well in the last 2 years, which I have supported. But we also did something for rural Colorado schools this year, and that was put a certain amount into rural schools that are way underfunded. And the reason I can't tell you the amount, I would have to research a little bit to get you the exact amount, but it was considerable. But I think the entire thing with education depends on the economy of the state, and the economy of the state is doing very well. We have a $7.1 billion budget, and right now I think education is right at 37% of that budget, and then we have 37% for education and 35% for health and human services. We did have the Medicaid expansion, which is not out of that budget at this point in time, but it will be. But health and human services really picked up the last couple of years. We've had situations where, on the Medicaid expansion, we've been able to pull in other entities within the medical field, such as dentistry, chiropractor. It's not up to me to identify or identify what is, the medical field. My job is to make sure that all healthcare is in place. When this Medicaid expansion come up, and I will tell you openly that I'm the only Republican that voted for the Medicaid expansion, and the reason was I got 9 hospitals in my district, and 5 of them are about to go under because of the indigent care. So there was, if you look at the situation where the vast distances in the rural areas, if a hospital is to close down and they would have to drive to the next hospital, you're looking at well over 100 miles. And hospitals are a mainstay in our society, similar to libraries, schools, et cetera, et cetera. So I could not allow the hospitals to close down, and it was something that was very much needed. That's going to be tied to the hospital user fund too, and that's coming up too, and it's undecided what we can do with this, but we're looking at it. It's until I see the actual legislation, I really can't even comment on something like that, but the Tabor issue is going to be an issue. But there's been studies out that Tabor has actually cost the taxpayer more money. So there's a lot of information to come out on that we'll have to wait and see. But right now we're looking at there'll be some legislation coming out or that'll probably go to the vote of the people where they see the marijuana tax. What we did is the people of the state of Colorado voted for that, but there was no allocation of how to spend that. So what we need to do is go back to the vote of the people and ask them if we can spend the money that's collected from marijuana tax to the education, just like the people wanted. And there's several issues coming out toward that, but what we have to realize is the needs of rural Colorado and the vast distances we just can't do without hospitals in particular areas. And there's a lot more that we're working on, but that's a brief overlay of what we're doing. Basically, session was out May 8th, and I'm pretty much on the road. The rest I've been on the road since session got out, and it's part of my philosophy about representing people like I like to be represented. But anyway, that's kind of the basics of it, and I know you got a lot of people here that you have to deal with. I didn't know if you had any other questions or whatnot, but
Councilor Stefano.
Senator, I'd like to thank you for representing Southern Colorado as you do. I've seen some of your bills, and I commend you. You've got a lot on your plate, and thank you for the work you do for us.
Well, thank you very much for that.
Councilor Coleman.
Senator Crowder, I don't really know you that well, but it was good seeing you this morning at the breakfast that we attended about 6:45 along with the mayor. And I'm glad that we had a lot of farmers and ranchers there. And with that in mind, anything that you can do to bring clarification to the water issues that we're facing in the San Luis Valley would be greatly appreciated, because water is crucial. Water is like gold here in the valley, and our biggest industry is the ag business, and that clarification will help the business and help keep the jobs that we have.
Well, thank you for that comment. My other life is I'm a farmer rancher, so I understand the water situation, but I also understand that our snowpack is the biggest issue in which we face. Until we can get our snowpack up to 100% levels or better, it'll continue to be a fight. We have a resilient aquifer. We just need to put water into it. There's a lot of issues. The Colorado water plant's coming out. I'm not sure exactly what it will do, other than educate people on the water situation. And conservation is always an issue. But conservation is something we as farmers have been practicing for a number of years already. We've got rid of our end guns. We've learned to go low pressure nozzling, and a lot of us have changed what we're growing. In some areas in the North Country, you get alfalfa. You do not have heavy ground, so alfalfa is a little bit more used. Even though the plant uses the same amount of water every day, the soil pulls it away from the plant. But you get down south and you got heavier soil, and it's a little bit easier to grow alfalfa and whatnot. But water's a contentious item. It always has been for the last 40 years that I'm aware of, and it always will be. But our job is to protect the water in this country, and that's what I will do.
Thank you, Senator, and we appreciate you being here.
Well, I thank you very much. Alamosa's always been a special place. You're the hub of the valley, and with that comes a certain amount of responsibility to the valley. The growth in Alamosa is phenomenal and is steady. And it continues to be resilient, and that's why people love it here so much. And but anyway, I thank you guys for what you do. And together, hopefully, we can make this a better place to live and a better state. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Next up, we'll move on to consent calendar A. The consent calendar allows multiple actions with one motion. Consent calendar A contains routine items which have been recommended for action by staff or advisory boards. Council may remove a consent calendar item for separate consideration. Tonight we have one item, the approval of the minutes of the meeting for August 5, 2015. Do I have a motion? Councilor Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve consent calendar A.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on consent calendar A? Seeing none, start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next up, we'll move on to regular business. Tonight we have a presentation from an outside agency, the Alamosa Christmas Light Parade. Ms. Dawn, would you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening. Dawn Honeycutt, 5543 Stanley Road, Alamosa. Thank you for fitting me in tonight. I know you've had a busy schedule, so I will talk as fast as I can so that we can get through it. I just wanted to give you a short recap on the rodeo. I didn't give as many specifics. We've kind of gone over things before. If you have more questions, I would be happy to provide that information. We had a great rodeo. I'm glad some of you were able to join us this year and it wasn't doubled up with your convention, so that was great. We had almost 300 cowboys and cowgirls with great times and great rides. Crowds were up. Sponsorship money was up, and we retained more income from the beer sales this year. We did things a little different. And so overall, the rodeo was profitable, which is always exciting. The fireworks were a great addition, and thank you for not spilling the beans on that, because it was fun to hear everybody's surprise as they went off each night. Friday night, we had almost 200 National Guardsmen and their families join us, so that was very special, and some awards were given out, and so that was an honor to have them. We continued to have a number of people plan their summer trips around the Roundup. In fact, I've already had a number of people contact me wanting to know the dates for next year so they can get their hotels booked and make their accommodations. So that's neat, people coming from back east and the Midwest, and so they're already thinking ahead. So that is very exciting. This year I put together a graph instead of giving you a whole bunch of numbers to kind of show things in a little bit different light. As you can see, all the lines are headed up, and I'm sorry I didn't get it so we could put it up there so you guys are all in the dark. But all the numbers are going up, and that's exciting. The yellow number is the total sponsorships, and you can see kind of what they're doing. The green number is the ticket sales, which you can see are steadily rising. Also, orange is the City of Alamosa's support of the rodeo. The dark orange is spectators, which you can also see is going up, and then the brown is the profitability of the overall rodeo. It's interesting to see the ticket sales have had a few spikes over the years. One when we brought the PRCA rodeo back, obviously, in 2010, and then also as we've raised ticket prices, spectator numbers are rising, but just pretty steadily. So that's where we're at with that. The profitability, I thought, was really interesting to see that it kind of matches the pattern of the city's support and the overall sponsorship. As far as our tickets and spectators, that seems to be steadily rising, but when we have more support from the community and from the city and tourism board also, you can see the profitability change there. Let's see. One thing that I thought was really neat as I was putting this together is in 2013 we had the support from the city and the tourism was at a steady level at that point, and the sponsorships really jumped up. So overall, I mean, this rodeo is made possible by the sponsors, by our local businesses and the community getting behind it, and to me that means a lot. So we come to our current project, which we're looking forward to now, which is the Christmas Light Parade, which is scheduled for December 18th, Friday night at 6:30 p.m. The estimated expenses for that event is going to be between $1,000 and $1,200. That includes the insurance, parade permit, T-shirts, the buckle and plaque, which we give to the winner, which I've shown a picture there so you guys could see that, advertising, and the Valley Courier. We have volunteers that line up the parade and organize floats, so there's no cost there. Promotion, Facebook, email, calling, all that stuff I do. And then we get a trailer donated. Our announcer, my husband, is donated. The music, sound equipment, all that stuff's donated. And our judges are volunteers. So that's kind of how all that goes together. Last year, we had an estimate of 1,500 to 2,500 spectators. Really, nobody had any idea. I called the police department, I called Public Works, I called everybody I could think of, and they just said there was a lot of people. So I did talk to the Feed Store Church. They handed out over 200 cups of hot chocolate and estimated that they gave one to every fifth or sixth person. So that's kind of where I started. This year I will try to have somebody with one of those little clickers and just get an idea of where we're really at with that. People, we're 3 to 4 thick all the way from where we started the parade at Denver all the way to Pizza Hut. There's one picture there which would have been on the cover right there by the brewery, and you can see all the people that were there. We had 27 floats, including one entry from Excel, which really had 5 vehicles, so that's kind of like 32 floats. and one marriage proposal last year, which was really fun. 25 to 30% boost in revenue is the estimate for the businesses that did choose to stay open. I talked to Scott at the brewery, and that was his estimate. Of course, he's right there in the midst of all the excitement. So that's where we're at with the parade. So I had some people recommend I come back, so I'm here. The roundup this year could afford to pay for it. We did make a profit. I had some other options of, going to our sponsors. I'm sure that they would be happy to jump up and help with that event always. They are very loyal as far as that is concerned. But I feel like they've given so much already. I like to just kind of do something to give back in a way. And so I don't know, I'm kind of just here for your recommendation. And if you have any feeling on the situation, we can put our profits obviously towards a rainy day fund. We've been blessed with great weather, except Friday night was a little cold this year. But there's always that chance that something's going to come up and rain and nobody's going to show up. And so it would be nice to build our rainy day fund back up, because we have been using it over the last couple years. So I don't know where you guys are at, what your budget looks like, but I wanted to present that to you and see if you had any thoughts or comments.
Thank you, Don. Councilor Coleman.
Ms. Honeycutt, I would like to thank you and your entire team for the great first-class event that you put on this year. I was fortunate enough to go to the event on Friday night as well as the event on Saturday. I can't tell you how proud I was to see so many people in the stands. It was packed, and these people were not only from the city of Alamosa, but they were from different areas in the valley and outside of the valley as well. So I want to thank you for that, and thank you for the tickets that you allowed for us to attend. I believe I might have been one of those who encouraged you to come back to council to ask for whatever form of a contribution that you feel comfortable asking for. And the reason why I asked you to come back is because I saw that investment in that sponsorship in action, and I saw the positive impact that it had on our community. And I think if the rest of the council agrees, we may or may not be able to support your cause, but I think it's a worthy cause, and I encourage you to continue to do the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Griego.
I'd also just like to thank you for the rodeo and so forth, and also to point out the fact that the city, when they do sponsorships, what we usually do is we give a group so much money so they can get on their feet. Because there's a lot of groups out there that we don't give any money. We give a lot of in-kind, police service and stuff like that, and they're able to proceed. And I noticed that when you first came here, it was supposed to be a 3-year deal as far as sponsorship, and we've gone up to about six years now. So, and like I say, it does bring a lot of money into the community. Early on brings a lot of money into Sunshine Festival does. There's a lot of groups out there, you know, and I think that it's important to do an initial investment and get you going on your feet, and then once in a while, and then, you know, and it shows that investment that we have given you're starting to see a profit now. So I think with that, I personally, I thank you very much, and this Christmas parade it's a good deal too, and but sometimes I personally feel that we've given the sponsorship, and you're on your feet, now you're walking. You were crawling when you first come here, and we invested, I think it was 10,000 at that.
The first year, yes.
For first 3 years, wasn't it?
Just 1 year at 10, and then 75, and then 5,000.
Yeah. So the investment has paid off for us, I think, and I think you're doing a great job, and nothing, you know, and I hope that it continues for people to continue coming to rodeo and the Christmas that. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further comments? Councilor Gillespie.
Yes, I think it's a great event. At this point, like Charlie says, it has been 6 years. We agreed on 3. I think it's time that we at least cut back the amount of the donation. To what extent, I'm not sure. Maybe the $3,000 to $4,000 range, but I would like to see other events funded also, and if we continue to fund this event at the same $5,000, I think it takes money away from other opportunities. So that's my recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
I'm just curious, how much funding were you thinking about for the Christmas light event?
Well, I kind of wanted to lay it out before you and see what you were thinking. I was thinking we could probably split it and have it sponsored by both Alamosa Roundup and the city of Alamosa. So that would be about $500.
Did you say $5,000?
500.
Oh, 500. Oh. Oh. Excellent. Is there any further discussion? If not, I think it's a worthwhile cause myself. And maybe we can ask Heather how much is in the pot for the sponsorship. How much money do we have in the sponsorship till at this point in time, Heather?
The budget was $10,000. Of that amount, $5,000 was provided for the rodeo, and $5,000 was provided for the chamber Beat the Heat barbecue. So that budget is gone. It would be council's discretion if they wanted to go above that or not.
Thank you, Heather. And so at this point in time, there's zero balance in that sponsorship till, but maybe after the budget, we can probably take a look at that. Councilor Stefano.
I like what you do. On a positive note, I think the Christmas light parade attracts a lot of people, and in my opinion, it'd be worth $500 to keep it going.
Thank you.
So we'll look at it after budget, which is this month, and see what we could do.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We will be in touch with you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to business brought forward by city staff. This evening we have a Public Works item, a public hearing and final reading on ordinance number 9, 2015, and ordinance amending section 2, 20-184E of Article 6, Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Alamosa, modifying bidding procedures. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Council. As you know, our current ordinance identifies the need to provide preference to local bidders and suppliers, but the criteria used to determine that preference has been problematic and difficult at times to determine. This amendment will change that criteria from distances from City Hall to what staff feels is a more intuitive and logical method of determining which level of preference to provide by tying the location of the bidder to municipal boundaries. This item was brought to council previously where it failed to pass with a 7% city preference, 5% county preference, and 3% valley preference. Upon further analysis, after talking with more people, listening to more input, we're recommending a 7% preference to bidders located within Alamosa County and a 3% preference to bidders outside of Alamosa County, but still within the remaining 5 counties in the valley.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions of Pat, Council?
So Pat, basically by amending this ordinance, it'll make it a lot easier for staff to make that determination when it comes to bidders' preferences. Instead of going by the radius that we have to use right now from City Hall, you will be able to include all of the businesses that are located in Alamosa County for one preference. Then the businesses that are located outside of Alamosa County would get another level of preference, which would be around 3%, but they're located within the San Luis Valley, making it easier for staff to make that determination and also cleaning up this ordinance from where it stands right now.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Diego.
I was one of the people that wanted this pretty much 7% across the board, but after your explanation on how some of these outer counties visit probably Salida and Pagosa Springs to do some of their buying, I could live. And I appreciate the fact that you brought in the county at 7% because in visiting with some of those contractors, they hire people from within the city. They do a lot of buying within the city. So, and also the city of Alamosa is in the county. So I appreciate that we saw the difference there and we changed that. So thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to reiterate my statements from the last meeting and thank Pat and staff for taking a look at this again and listening to us a little bit, even though you are the expert. I'm also pleased to see that the whole of Alamosa County will be at 7%. I'm going to be a thorn in your side again and say I would wish I could see the rest of the valley be bumped up to maybe 4 or 5%. As we talked about in our economic development meeting 2 hours ago, we all agreed that the folks around the valley are important too for Alamosa, that type of stuff. But in order to get this passed, I will be voting in favor of this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I'm a staunch believer in the 3-5-7 split, and I really don't want to put our city businesses in jeopardy. But after much soul searching and actually visiting with some folks, I've kind of changed my mind. And of course, if there's no significant fiscal impact to the city, then I don't think there are that many businesses in the county that would be affected by the 2% discrepancy. And so I see it as a positive measure, Pat. I think staff has listened to council, and so hopefully we can move forward with this change. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And so with that, I will open the public hearing and final reading on ordinance number 9, 2015. Is there anyone in the audience wanting to speak for or against this ordinance? Would you identify yourself and your address for the record, please?
Dan McCann, 1809 Sunset, Alamosa, Colorado. I've been political here for years. I'm a law and order guy, but I'm also a pro-free enterprise guy. This process to me has been fair, and every time you have a compromise, there's going to be somebody who feels they didn't get a good deal. But this has been fair. Public hearings are fair. Work sessions are open to anyone. They're not executive sessions, and this was not done overnight. So people have had impact, and sometimes the city expands their boundaries. Well, there are some people in business, it takes a large area, and maybe they wouldn't be included in the city. So you got that in the county. Anyway, not everybody's going to get what they want. And like Larry talked about, the federal government, if we had some compromise back there, some of us would start to win instead of far left, far right. Everybody in this country's in the middle. We got to pay our bills.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. Councilor Stefano, did you have your... Oh. All right. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this point? Seeing none, I will close the public and final reading. Oh, do we have someone else? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward. Tell us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Georgia Cook. My address is 4785 County Road 112.5 South. And I just really want to express a heartfelt thank you for considering this so well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cook. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and final reading on ordinance number 9, 2015, and bring it to council for further discussion or a decision. Councilor Griego.
Well, if there's no further comments, I'll make a motion that we approve in final reading ordinance number 9, 2015, an ordinance amending sections 2, 184 in parentheses E of Article 6, Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Alamosa to modify bidding procedures.
I second it.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on ordinance number 9, 2015? Seeing none, start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I'd like to commend the council for coming together and putting our personal thoughts and make this work for the people of our county. And I really appreciate all of us coming together working on this. And like Mr. McCann said, government can come together and get things done.
Councilor Coleman.
Thank you, Councilman Vigil, and I too would like to commend council for coming together to make this happen for all of the businesses that are located in Alamosa County. This, I mean, we started off completely divided, and to see us come together unanimously is an amazement, and it just shows that one person's voice can make a huge difference in local government. So I encourage people in our community to stand up and speak up for what you believe in. And this is a prime example of how government can work to benefit all. Thank you.
Councilor Stefano.
I also think this is a great thing, too. As a business owner, I'm really happy to see this. We were divided, and I'm glad we came together and resolved it.
Thank you. And so we'll move on to business brought forward by the police department. We have a public hearing this evening on ordinance number 12, 2015, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Alamosa School District to provide a school resource officer from the Alamosa Police Department to the Alamosa School District. Thank you, Chief, for being here.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Like you just said, this is a ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement between the school district and the city of Alamosa to provide a school resource officer to be within our school systems. The agreement is to, the school will pay half up to $25,000 of the officer's salary within this agreement.
Thank you, Chief. Any comments or questions of the Chief? Councilor Grego?
I had one. Who's the officer, and how long have we had this program going?
The officer is Bruce Luco, who's a 39-year veteran with our police department. He was moved to that position 3 years ago, I believe it was. We've had this program since, I believe, 2008. It's been very successful. It's made a difference in reducing crime within the school system itself, and then also education programs within. Bruce teaches classes educating them on different topics.
And this officer he's located at the high school. Does he also visit the middle school or elementary schools? How does that process work?
His main office is at the middle school. We see the largest impact at that age group. Okay. He does move between schools. He goes to the high school as needed. And last year, within the agreement, we expanded it to the elementary school. We saw a need for Officer Luco to expand his duties and responsibilities into the elementary school.
And I've always been a believer that at the elementary level, to introduce our police so they feel there's a safetiness, instead of, when you come into middle school, when a police officer approaches you, there's probably some kind of problem, is the best way to do it. As these kids come up to middle school, they know our department, they trust our department. There's a good working condition there with the kids, and I think that's a very, very important program.
That's one of the reasons we expanded it to the elementary school. We did see the same things that you just mentioned, that the kids were afraid of police officers. Those families that have encounters with us are usually negative, and we wanted to break that barrier and show them that we're not their enemy. So that's why we did. One of the reasons we expanded down into the elementary school.
Councilor Coleman.
Chief, I would like to thank you, the Alamosa School District, and also Officer Luco, making a decision to continue to provide a resource officer in collaboration with our school district. It's a no-brainer, and it's a win-win situation for our community as a whole. From what I understand, the resource officer is doing a great job fostering healthy relationships with the students, educating students and staff on the harmful use of alcohol and drugs, and providing a positive police presence that provides a sense of security for the students, the staff, and the parents. By helping to fund this project, we're sending a positive message to the students, the staff, the parents, and letting them know that their safety and on-campus awareness is important to us. So thank you for what you're doing. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, in the safety aspect, Officer Luco has received extensive training in school safety, is working as a team member with the school staff to make improvements on school safety. So,
Councilor Stefano.
On public hearing ordinance number 12, 2015, I'd like to recommend that we approve this intergovernmental district to provide a school resource officer from the Alamosa Police Department.
And so with all those statements, I will open the public hearing on ordinance number 12, 2015. Thank you, Councilor Griego. So if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please come forward, step to the microphone, identify yourself and your address, please, for the record.
I'm Christina Daniel, and I live at 732 Weber Drive here in Alamosa. And I just wanted to say I work at the Community Behavioral Health Group, and we work with the school resource officers often. And I have been so pleased and impressed with the way Alamosa Police Department and the school districts have worked together to work with our families and our entire community when an issue comes up with a child. And so I think this is a great program and is something that should absolutely be continued. And I have noticed in my personal life, I had a situation with a police officer. It was very positive, Chief. Very positive, but that they are taking into consideration family members. I've seen the training grow. I've seen the sensitivity to our community and our youth, and I just want to say how much I'm appreciative as a citizen, but also that I believe school resource officer programs work, and they're one of the things that we absolutely need to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on ordinance number 12-2015? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on ordinance number 12, 2015 and bring it back to council for further discussion or a decision. Councilor Griego.
If there's no further questions, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve ordinance number 12-215.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on ordinance number 12, 2015? Seeing none, start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Next up, we have City Manager Legal. We are asked to authorize the construction of an office for our city attorney. Heather?
Thank you, Mayor. It appears that the office that was built into the city manager's office, I have filled with our human resources director. So now that we are entertaining the thought of bringing the city attorney in and creating an office here at City Hall, we're looking at our different options in order to give him an appropriate workspace. We obviously have a lot of room because with the design of City Hall, it was built in an open manner to allow for some growth and addition of space. We want to make sure that we meet his needs or any person who should come after him in regards to some privacy, confidentiality, those types of items, and then also have that person close enough to administrative assistance and filing and those types of things. The location we have determined that would probably work best is to essentially split the break room in half. It allows us to still have a full functioning break room with everything that's in there. The only thing we would essentially be removing is the couch. It would still have a table and all the kitchen amenities there. And then that would allow us to use the back half to put a door that would be across from our IT department, and he would be close to the city manager's office and be able to utilize those resources as well. It's also a location that has a window and can provide, a little bit of sunlight and those types of amenities as well. The estimated cost for construction and purchase of the equipment is about $12,000, and it is staff's recommendation that we move forward with construction.
Thank you, Heather. Council, do we have any questions of Heather? Councilor Griego.
You say it's going to cost $12,000 to do this. What are we doing? Are we just erecting some partitions, or how is that? How does that work? Because for me, I think that's a small amount. So.
If you look at the attachment up there, there's a breakdown of the estimated costs, and it's not going to be partitions. It would be an actual framing. We would adjust the ceiling to make sure it doesn't look as if we just went in there and split a room. We want to make sure it still looks appropriate. We would have the sound insulation. We'd have drywall. Paint, carpet. The door would be the similar door that you see in finance. You have electrical needs, some window coverings, potential mechanical that we're not quite sure on, and then obviously a desk and a chair. So it would be an actual built office.
So all this is in-house? Except for the electrical, I'm sure that, but the partitioning, the drywall and all that, is that going out to?
We would contract that out.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Vigil.
Yes, two questions. One is, will this meet the needs for Eric? Is he happy with this? And two, how will this affect our budget? Thank you.
Heather first wanted to stick me somewhere with no windows and asked me how I felt about that. And I told her you could build that office, but I would not use it. So no, I think this would be ideal.
Maybe if we leave the couch in there, it'd be all right.
In regards to the budget, we would probably code it out of the non-departmental budget. It would be over budget, so we would do either a budget amendment or it might hit the fund balance as well. But it's a one-time expense, and so looking at that and what we would gain, it would still be staff's recommendation.
Councilor Coleman.
I agree with staff, and I feel that it's warranted to construct a space for the city attorney. It's going to be good to see you in the building, Eric. And I'm really glad that the council who actually were part of the designing of this building, I'm glad that you designed something that we can grow into instead of something that we would grow out of. So that's good to know. The only thing that I would like for staff to look at, looks like we're going to be paying almost a little bit over a third for a desk and chairs, around $3,200 of the total project. So just wanted to make sure we just keep it in line with the total cost of things as we proceed.
Thank you. Councilor Griego?
I guess one more comment. Since we're moving our attorney in-house, does that mean more work? Do we have to review your contract? What does that all total up to? Because once you come in, that means you might be doing more work, you're probably going to emphasize a lot more on city business. Not that you're not doing that now, but I'm saying, you're coming inside the house here now.
Well, I've actually been a city employee now since January of 2014, and I'm overdue for a job evaluation, so we should probably talk about that at some point in the near future. But I don't necessarily see a lot more work. I think one of the issues that has arisen is that because I have been a contract employee for so long, and haven't had the presence, that there's a lot of the serendipitous inter-office interaction that's missing that this will help facilitate. But it's not, the building of the city attorney office doesn't mean that the city attorney is going to be there 8 to 5. I'll still be a part-time employee.
And Eric did reference, there's times something can get lost through email, or you forget to copy the right person on email, or you have the discussion in the hallway, and just having his presence could make it more streamlined and easier from a workload perspective as well. And we'll see if we let him out of the building as a part-time.
Councilor Vihil?
If there's no further discussion or questions, I move that we authorize staff to add an office for the city attorney with an estimated cost of $12,000.
I'll second that motion.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I did have a question, Eric. You obviously have a practice that you're, at this point in time, that is probably a pretty healthy practice, other than that of the city. And so when you come in, will you still have outside clients? And if you do, and any of them are city employees, is that going to create a problem for you, or how are you going to handle that?
I think probably the way to phrase that question is, will I have outside clients, and will I be dealing with that issue in City Hall? And the answer is no. Obviously, I'm not going to be using my city attorney office as a private office, so I'll have to have a separate office so long as I maintain a separate practice.
Thank you for clearing that up, Eric. So I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the authorized construction for the office of the city attorney? Seeing none, start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Council. And so we'll move on to a public hearing and second reading on ordinance number 1320-15, suspending the 180-day limit on transient dealers' licenses for sales and delivery of food and/or beverages for a period of 3 months to allow consideration of an amendment to the existing ordinance concerning such licenses. Heather?
Thank you, Mayor. This was essentially first brought to our attention. I think Randy with ACID was fielding some questions in regards to people who are interested in making an investment in mobile vending. And his questions were focused more about what was the reasoning behind the 6 months. Is that something that would remain that way? And just more trying to make sure that he was making the connections and helping us review something that those in the community might be interested in. When we looked at the research, it's quite clear to us that there was a change that occurred nationally in how mobile vending is being treated by communities. I think at first many communities were not that warm towards it. They had many concerns. But I think as the mobile vending industry's changed and the facilities that the investments are being made in have changed dramatically, I think that's begun to change some of the community's opinions. And then I think the other thing is they started realizing that from an economic development perspective, these type of businesses can create some foot traffic, some activity in areas that maybe did not have that before. And they can also help entrepreneurs who are thinking about entering but may not be wanting to make the bigger investment of a brick and mortar building get a feel if there's a market for what they're providing. At the same time, it's quite clear that communities want to protect the interest of the brick and mortar. There's more investment that can sometimes be required for that, and some competition issues and those types of things. The study provided a lot of best practices of how to balance that. And essentially what staff did is pull out maybe what some of those best practices are. We met with a group of brick and mortar businesses, some restaurant owners, to see what their input was regarding that. And then we've also processed some of these ideas with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Where we are at this point is we would like to have just a little bit of time to get that cleaned up and bring it to council in the form of a work session. We've tentatively scheduled that for October 7th. And at that work session, we could go over more of what some of those restrictions might be. And, you know, in granting a 12-month license, there could be things that are much more specific that protect the brick and mortar, but at the same time allow there to be a reasonable investment for a 12-month license. And so we're trying to strike a balance and see if there's something that works for Alamosa. Because of the timing with the 6-month limit, many of those who received their mobile vending, it will be expiring. So what this ordinance does tonight is to just simply allow us 180 days to process this with council, allow you some time to think about it and make a decision on if you're interested in changing that or not. If you're not interested, the worst case scenario of what's happened is they've had 3 or 180 days to vend. There's not much harm out there in regards to if you still decide that you want to keep the 6 month. It's a chance to give you time to consider it and allow them to continue operating, not get caught in the web of the red tape as we're thinking about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. And so with that, I will open the public hearing and second reading on ordinance number 13-27. Anyone in the audience for or against this ordinance, please step to the podium and voice your opinion. Thank you, sir. Would you please give us your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Jeff Woodward, 13271 County Road 106 South, Alamosa, Colorado. Thank you guys for considering this. My family, give you a real brief history. My family has been in business in Alamosa for over 30 years now, in some kind of business or another. We started in the sporting good business, and we went to the cell phones, and now we are a mobile vendor. While not probably a traditional restaurant as we see it with a brick and mortar type situation, we are a viable license paying, or a viable business paying taxes, sales taxes, taxes on the equipment that we have, taxes on the license plates, ownership taxes. So we get the taxes just like everybody else does, maybe not like the brick and mortar, but we are a viable business. As Heather said, the mobile vending business has changed a lot in the last just couple years. It's no longer you don't see a whole lot of camper trailers selling burritos out the back door. You know, it just doesn't happen. It's not a clean business that way, and people started seeing the advantage of having a mobile unit. And I invite anybody who wants to stop by ours to come by and go through it. We've got a considerable investment there. In fact, I would venture to say that we have more of investment sitting in that trailer than a lot of restaurants do. We are, like I say, we are a viable business. We're not transients. Now, I worked on the railroad for 27 years. I can tell you what a transient is. Kyle doesn't have long enough hair, and his clothes are too clean to be a transient. But we want to be here in Alamosa. We are a clean business, and I encourage council when you get into this to make sure that the business is clean. I mentioned to a couple people that I've talked to in the past that we started the opposite way that a lot of brick and mortar places start. A lot of people put up a brick and mortar and then they add a mobile unit. Well, we started with a mobile unit, and our intention is in the future to have that brick and mortar location. But we have an advantage, or I don't know if it's an advantage, it's an advantage to us, that we can move and we can service our customers better by taking our kitchen right to their location. The food's fresher, it's a better product, and again, I invite anybody, if you want to try our product, be more than happy to set you guys up with a great pulled pork sandwich or whatever you need. We like I say, we are clean, and I encourage that. That has to be. It has to be clean, just like any brick and mortar. Any brick and mortar location has to be clean. It has to be be able to, the health inspector walked in there and smile and say, you know what, this is okay. And she did that with us. And again, I invite anybody who wants to stop by our place. We'll take you right in the trailer, walk you right through there. That is a complete industrial kitchen sitting there. And like I say, there's a huge a huge investment there. And we didn't go second class on anything. We're not trying to cut any corners. It is a viable business. And we are paying taxes just like everybody else is, and we're not going anywhere if we don't have to, that's for sure. I thank you for your time and thank you for your consideration to changing this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Woodward. Councilor Griego, do you have a question?
Yeah, I guess, Jeff, you kind of answered it. You do get inspected just like anybody else.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is like every 6 months or an annual type of deal where they give you some kind of certification of rights and wrongs or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, we're just like everybody else. They can stop by at any time and come in that business and inspect us. Yeah. They don't have to let us know. It's not. They could come in once a week, once a day. They could do whatever they want, and we welcome that.
Sure.
Yeah, we welcome that. So, we have to be inspected. Like I say, they don't have to set up a time to do it. She can stop in anytime she wants to and go through that trailer. And if something's not right, she sure lets you know. And believe me, she'll find something. But it's got to be a clean business like everything else. And we run it that way. That's for sure.
Councilor Coleman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And in preparing for this conversation, Mr. Woodard's business, he and his son, I had an opportunity to take that tour of their mobile vending unit, and I can assure you it's spotless, it's clean, and the investment that they put into it, it goes up in several thousands of dollars. And I asked Kyle earlier, and he probably won't mind me sharing this, but that mobile vending unit that they have costs upwards of over $60-some thousand, and that's a huge investment. So by allowing them the opportunity to recover their investment over a longer length of time would be beneficial. The mobile food vending vendors in our community, they're providing a needed service. We talked the other day. He owns a barbecue business, and it's not next to another competing brick-and-mortar barbecue business. And I think that we could find a way for these mobile vendors to work with our current brick-and-mortar businesses, as long as we keep everything on a level playing field for all parties involved. Business is changing. As we look at ways to attract businesses, who knows, one day he may occupy one of the biggest businesses downtown restaurant in Alamosa by starting off with a mobile vending unit. So I'm really for this extension at this time. Thank you.
Councilor Gillespie.
Yes, I'll just echo what Councilor Coleman has said. Your business, your mobile kitchen, has become a destination for a lot of the public during lunch and dinner. It's an icon for Alamosa, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you guys as well. Another thing that we are a competition team, and we like to think that we represent Alamosa well on the competition circuit. I don't know if many of you know it, but I'm going to brag on my son a little bit. His ribs won first place at the Denver Stock Show this year, and we've won awards with everything that we cook. So we're not backing off from anybody. We're happy to be here and hope we can represent Alamosa well and be here the rest of our lives as far as that goes.
Thank you, Mr. Woodward. Is there anyone else in the audience willing to speak for or against this ordinance? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and second reading on ordinance number 13-25 and bring it to council for more discussion, further discussion, or a decision. Councilor Coleman.
Okay, and as far as more discussion is concerned, I have to be fair. I'm really for the mobile vendors to continue to grow their business. I also have been contacted by brick and mortar businesses as well. And the only concern they want to make sure is as we try to find common ground, that we make sure that the distance and space between the businesses are fair. So I think that's something that's priority on our list, and I just want the brick and mortar businesses to know that we're going to try to find a fair resolution that's going to make it beneficial to all businesses and that serve food here in Alamosa.
Thank you, Councilman Coleman, and I will echo that as well. I think we need to find certain locations that are non-obtrusive to our brick and mortar, and I'm sure we can identify that through zoning or whatever method we need to. Councilor Gillespie.
I'd just like to ask legal counsel if, do you think 3-month period is long enough to get a new ordinance in place?
It kind of depends, and I really am not up to date on how far staff has progressed with a lot of the considerations that you all have just been talking about how you balance the needs of the brick and mortar, but I have the sense that things are fairly well along, so I would think that 3 months is adequate, yes.
To add further clarification on that, by the time we have our work session, we will pretty much have a really clean document for you, but obviously it's something that if there's something you don't like or if you want to change, but it will make the discussion very easy. If you think something's missing, we can pull it in, but it will be as close to a clean and final document as possible for that work session.
Very good. With that, I make the motion we approve ordinance number 13-2015.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the ordinance number 13-2015?
One more comment, Mayor. I kind of want to echo what Mr. Coleman says. Being in business for 37 years myself with this brick and mortar stuff, there is a big investment. And like Heather says, things have changed through the years. And the investment in these other, like a business that Mr. Woodard has, you know, it kind of simulates it, but we need to give that respect to that brick and mortar also and work together and find a halfway medium for both people to live and do business.
Thank you. Start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Council. Next up, we have committee reports. Does anyone have a committee report? Move on to staff announcements. Heather?
We do not have very many staff announcements. I didn't manage to catch you before we opened up the first public hearing. In regards to the Christmas parade, it's actually something that if you want to vote on, it would be coming out of this year's budget. So it wouldn't necessarily be something we cover in the budget discussions unless you wanted to include an additional amount next year for the next Christmas parade. So I guess my question to council is, I know people have left. Is this something you would want me to bring forward on the next agenda for you to vote on then, so we can maybe give a clear answer one way or another to the group?
I think one of the things that I was kind of concerned about, since there was nothing left in the budget this year, and we still have to determine what amount of money we plan to put in the sponsorship account. I think it would be, I don't think they're in a hurry for that, but that's my personal opinion.
So to clarify, I think she's asking for this year's parade, so it would be funds from this year that would go towards the sponsorship. The other discussion council can have is for the next year's parade, if you want to make sure that the budget we're working on includes funds in order to cover that. But her specific request tonight would impact the current budget that we're in.
I understand that, but my understanding is that the sponsorship fund is at a zero balance. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Heather, I would like to just add, just for council to come in and maybe just toss about, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that maybe at the next meeting the council could talk about seeing if there's additional funds somewhere in the budget, $500, to help out with the parade this year. That is something, if council agrees, we could possibly look into and maybe present that at the next meeting. Is that what I'm understanding?
That is correct, and it's just, I feel that they probably need an answer, a yes or a no, on if they will receive any funding for this year. And so that would be council's discretion on if they wanted to look for the 500 or an amount in the budget.
Is there any way council could discuss that right now while we're here, where if they feel comfortable with that?
My impression is that we have it on the agenda. So I would think we're okay making that discussion. Unfortunately, if you have any questions, she's already left. So it's up to you if you want to finish that discussion maybe, or Eric.
Well, I'd say you had it on the agenda and you acted on it. So, and your action was kick it down the road. So I think that what Heather's saying is it doesn't make sense to kick it down the road as part of your budget discussion for budget year 2016. And if you're wanting to consider the request, it makes sense to put it on an upcoming agenda, and staff, I believe, would indicate to you as part of that agenda item whether there are funds available and where they might come from. You don't have to do that work.
I would be more comfortable with that, in that not only would it allow us time to think about it, but we could probably also ask staff to find out where that $500 is coming from, or where we can access those funds. Councilor Gillespie?
Yes, I was just going to say that $500 is a minimal amount, and I would think we would be able to find that in the budget, so I would like to see that on the next agenda. Thank you.
Councilor Grego?
I guess one comment I have is we have a lot of groups out there that are not coming to the city to ask for money, and yet they're successful in finding their own funding, and sure, we help them with the in cost, but to continue spending money when we've given monies as a startup, I'm against that myself, and there's a lot of groups out there that would want to come to the city and participate the same way as the rodeo and other groups have, and they haven't had the opportunity because the funds are pretty much taken up. So I think that's something that we need to look at. You're right, it's not this budget, but next budget.
Councilor Vigil?
Well, I think there's two issues here. There's the rodeo funding, and then the funding for the parade. And I agree with Councilor Gillespie. We can find $500 somewhere in our budget to help them with this, and then we can cross that road or cross that bridge when we get there with funding for the actual rodeo.
Councilor Coleman?
And gentlemen, let's keep in mind this $500 is for the citizens of Alamosa during the holiday season, so to help out in the festivities. And $500, I'm quite sure that staff is very capable of finding those funds to make this happen for the citizens.
Thank you, Councilor Coleman. And I am sure that will happen. I don't think there's any question of finding the monies. I think it was just a legal matter of already acting upon the request. And so we'll see it on the next agenda at next meeting. Thank you. And so
I do have a few more.
Sorry.
It turned into more of a discussion. We will have it on the agenda for next meeting.
Thank you, Heather.
The other two items I wanted to let you know, also on the next meeting, you will see several items related to the SID discussions that we've had. So one will be working on closing out the existing with the assessment and what that looks like, and another item related to beginning the creation of the other one for the electric and gas. So I wanted to make sure you're aware that those are coming up, and they will be on the next agenda. And then my last comment is to let you know that we are getting ready to issue a request for proposals to hire a firm that would come in and review our utility rates. There are several reasons we feel that this is important. One is we look at utility rates, and we want to make sure that we're recovering the cost, but yet making it reasonable for our customers. And as we look at the budget, the direction that we had that set out the limits for 5 years will be done after this year's budget. So we feel having a review of those rates and if they're adequate or not would be good as we prepare to maybe set out the next 5 years for anticipated increases. The other reason we think it's very timely to move forward with this is when we look at any grants for our treatment facilities, from talking to the USDA, DOLA, and some of the other agencies that would be who we would approach for grant funding, something that was very much emphasized to us is they would look at our utility rates, both to make sure that they're sustainable for our operations and that they are where they need to be. And so if we want to be successful with grant applications, we need to make sure we've got our utility rates where they need to be. So we will be issuing a request for proposals and hopefully can bring a firm on to conduct this work in a timely manner.
Thank you, Heather. Councilor Vihil.
Yes, I had two questions, one for Pat and one for Heather. The first one for Pat is, can you give us an update on 8th Street? Is it getting close to getting finished?
We're getting there. We have managed to iron out the snag with CenturyLink and the fiber line on the south side of the street that's prevented us from building the drainage swale on that side of the street. They'll be making that crossover next Tuesday. Hopefully the Monday following that we can get the contractor back down here. He's moved up to Greeley for a project, but he has expressed willingness to get back down here and finish that up for us. We should be finishing with the sidewalk in, I would say, by the very first part of next week, at which time they'll start bringing gravel in and doing final subgrade preparation for paving. So I hope to be paving by the end of next week.
Thank you, Pat. And then my second question is for Heather. We last talked about plastic bags the first meeting of July. I'm wondering where we're at with that process.
Yes, I need to bring before council what that plan would look like. This week and a little bit of last week, we've been working a lot on budget. So I would anticipate maybe a few more weeks, probably not the next budget meeting or the next council meeting, but maybe the first one in October.
Thank you, Council. And so next item is we have the need for oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Councilor Grego. Council comment. Councilor Grego.
Okay. It's been a long night. I just wanted to remind everybody that this September the 12th here, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, we have that Kaboom deal going on at the park. And so far, I don't know how many counselors have signed up. If you can get hold of Bethany at 587-3499, put your name on there, and because we need 200 volunteers to help out. And I don't think that from looking at the list, I haven't seen a counselor, and I heard that some of these council people were going to be the first ones to write. I hadn't seen it, but okay. Okay. Okay, all right.
Councilor Councilor Grego has the floor. Councilor Grego, are you done?
Thank you.
Councilor Coleman.
I just want to make sure that misinformation is not presented to the public. But my name is on the list, and my name was one of the first on the list, and I will be one of the first persons there that Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, Councilman.
Councilor Coleman, your name was first on the list. That's why I got lost in all the others, I bet. Anyway, Councilor Gillespie.
Just want to remind everyone that one of the big events of Alamosa is this weekend, the Early Iron Festival. Hope everyone has a chance to go out there and look at all the vehicles. It's, I think, one of the greatest events in Alamosa, so thank you.
Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to comment on Mr. Grego's comments about the volunteers. I will also be there. There's probably a student group from Center who's going to be there to get community hours done, as well as probably a group from Sangre who will be going to help out. I understand they need to sign up. Also, I was able to finally get the information to the school district, and they have given that information to the principals, so hopefully it's working its way down to the students and their families.
And Councilor Vigil, all I was pointing out is, see, the person who's really coordinated this is Mr. Hines back there and his staff and Bethany. So they have to have these numbers so they can, know who's going to be involved. And because these last minute, we got to go out there and give it an extra push if we don't have the right people out there. So that's all I was pointing out. And excuse me, Mr. Coleman, I didn't see your name at the first one, so.
All right, thank you, Councilman Griego. He and I have so much fun up here. Okay, as far as the comment is concerned, Pat, I've received a lot of positive comments from citizens in regards to the street work that the staff is doing, and I really appreciate that. If you could just share with the public briefly of how did you determine which streets were going to be addressed and which streets are going to be addressed in the future? Because I've been getting that call, and I don't understand exactly how it works. But if you could briefly go over it, I appreciate it.
Sure. Well, we look at a lot of different items. We with the new CIP, we run all of the streets through the rating process. It considers things like safety, things like design geometrics, existing asphalt condition, things like traffic counts, things like that. We have different techniques of working on the streets depending on what kind of condition they're in. There's different, the streets are the biggest investment the residents have. We can replace all the pipe under the streets 3 times before we can replace the streets themselves, the asphalt. So what we do is we make a real serious effort to try to keep our good streets good and work on the ones that are falling off the back as we can. So it's kind of a balancing act, trying to most efficiently apply the funds to all the streets in the different areas of the city, and trying to maintain that resource as best we can. So.
Okay.
To also clarify, so some of the work that we did, you couldn't necessarily do if the condition was too bad on the road.
Exactly.
So some may wonder, our road seems to be worse, but it didn't get it. That technique is for a certain condition.
Exactly, like the slurry seal that we put down earlier this summer, that's actually designed to be put on a pretty good street. And what that does is it's designed to maintain the condition of that street at a high level and catch it before it starts to fall off of the backside of that lifetime curve. And we have other things. We have everything from a slurry seal, which is about as minimal a treatment as we can do, to all the way through chip seals, overlays, mill and fills to complete reconstructions. So.
Thank you so much for clarifying the slurry seal, because people were saying, well, the street didn't look like it needed any repairs or anything, but I understand the slurry seal is there to help make sure that we maintain a good street.
Exactly.
So we can't really put that on a street that's really damaged. We have other, that would fall up under another type of project. Okay.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Councilor Griego?
One comment before you leave there, Pat. I need to also point out the fact that we're pouring more money into streets.
Yes.
Yes.
The slurry seal was done with a maintenance fund that you created this year. This is the first year we've had those funds available. So that slurry was done without cutting into our regular street budget, which was important to you guys.
Thank you, and thank you, Pat. Appreciate it. And my final comment I wanted to make is I would like to encourage all the citizens to come out this weekend and participate in the Early Iron event. I think that's a real good economic booster for our economy, and I just welcome all the citizens to participate. And also, this weekend is our first home game for our high school football team, the Mean Moose, and encourage everyone to come and show your support for our Alamosa High School football team. They have a new coach under their leadership, and the team is an exciting team to watch. So, and I'm also participating in volunteering and coaching some of the football here for the JV at the high school team. So I encourage everyone to come and show their support. Thanks.
I'm glad I'm the last one to speak here on council comment because I almost eliminated it in order to get to our executive sessions. But John Brownell and I've been waiting for his call, Councilor Grego. John Brownell said, I'll call you if I'm going to participate in the Kaboom. So I'm waiting for his call, but I think I might have to call him, and I'll be there on Saturday. Anyway, other than that, Pat, excellent job in traffic management over on 8th Street, especially with the school system opening up. I know now in September we'll be facing that roundabout over on Maroon Drive and Clark. And so that's going to be challenging for you as well, but thank you for all the good work. Anyway, we'll move on to our executive sessions. We have the need for 2 executive sessions this evening. An executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6 for personnel matters, and executive session for CRS 24-6 to discuss the purchase and acquisition of water rights. I will entertain a motion.
I guess I had a question for legal. Would it be possible to make one motion and include, just so you include all the pursuant to CRS, or you want separate motions on each one of those?
One motion is fine unless someone on council wants to vote differently on the different items, but one motion is fine.
I will entertain a motion for both.
If that's the case, Mayor, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we go into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 in parentheses 4, in parentheses F for personnel matters, evaluation of the city manager, and also for executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 in parentheses 4, parentheses 8, to discuss the purchase of or acquisition of water rights.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on our executive sessions? Seeing none, start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
And after we conclude our executive sessions, there will be no regular business discussed. The meeting will then adjourn. Thank you.